So if we look at a perfusionist job description, this comes from a site off the internet. Next. It's an excellent outlook for job. As the population ages, perfusionists will be needed in increasing numbers, we see. Secondly, the definition and nature of the work of perfusionists is to set up heart-lung machines, which take over the functions of the patient, their heart and lungs. Third, requirements to obtain employment. Perfusionists should be certified or eligible from the American Board. And they describe the working conditions for a perfusionist. They'll work in a well-lighted, sterile environment. They may stand for 6 to 8 hours and may be required to lift heavy machinery. And the operating room is stressful. This comes off the careersstateuniversity.com. So what I'm going to discuss today is surveys suggest that some perfusionists feel that they are in dead-end jobs with little opportunity for career advancement. We sometimes see this in our job satisfaction surveys, and I thought I would address that. Respect is also an issue that comes as the top on the list for dissatisfiers. Surgeons, sometimes you see joking at the field with the staff there, and then within seconds they can be yelling at the perfusionist something to do with the level may have, or they may have filled up the heart or something like that. So this can lead to job dissatisfaction, ultimately lack of diligence, and possibly create an unsafe environment for our patients. So, when Abraham Lincoln said a person is as happy as they make up their mind to be. So this is something we need to take in consideration. Fortunately, many opportunities exist for perfusionists outside the operating room. And whether a decreased caseload or personal search for new job experience, perfusionists should seek challenges which can renew their spirit and lead to further professional or personal development. Although perfusionists are a primary part of cardiac surgery, they rarely get involved with activities outside of the operating rooms and where they could be involved in the intensive care unit. First step for stepping out of the operating room should be participating in rounding. We've started doing that. And along these same lines, members of the perfusion team should attend morbidity and mortality conferences within the hospital, because many ideas can be generated from that. So isn't fighting disease and saving lives enough? When people ask me, what do? I don't tell them I'm a perfusionist. I say I fight disease and save lives. I don't want to label myself. So, if we look at population, this is from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Perfusionists are probably listed in the top 20 or even higher than that, or lower percentage with salary, $100,000 or more. And if they approach $150,000, that's in the top 5% of earners in the country. If we look at the average workday for an employed person, let's see what we do. Primarily we sleep, if we look at started on the right side here, 7 to 8 hours. This is probably not what most perfusionists do. Working or related activities, 8 to 8.7 hours is probably a little less. We probably work a little more than that. Leisure sports are probably a little less if you have time for that. And household activities and caring for others is probably less as well. So this white part is probably significantly increased in our jobs and could lead to stress. So if we look at difficulty of cases versus the time of day, we have difficulty on the y-axis and the time of day. We have routine type cases done in the morning. Towards the evening, we start doing maybe re-ops, save those. Aneurysms, just about when you're about to leave. And finally, when you go on vacation, maybe an ECMO or so as you're ready to leave. It's another form of stress. So, the average hours of people per day, men and women, spent in other various activities, so we can see this graphed out as well. Men versus women. This is an interesting thing also from the Board of Labor Statistics, or Bureau of Labor Statistics. This is percent of time of what you're doing. This is blue is sleeping. Green is the working, and household activities and leisure in the white. If we look, this is what the average person does. But if you look at perfusionists, we see at this 4 to 5 or 4 o'clock to about 8 o'clock, that's where a lot of our activity may occur, where this green arrow is probably extended out to here, and its white arrow depressed down to here. So the percent of population who work on weekdays. Oh, this is getting depressing. Actually, many people work on weekends. If you look at the labor statistics numbers, of total people employed, 36% of the people work during a weekend day. So what are some of the areas of opportunity? You could get the chief's job. You could get involved with performance or quality improvement activities. Get involved with your professional organizations, such as licensure. Get involved with research, as we've seen. Typically, it seems students get involved during their learning period of education, and then they stop after they're working. If your program has developed an LVAD or ECMO service, journal clubs, we've started that, or get a life. Getting a life is trying to do something outside of work, so you're not always thinking of it. So if you were to get the chief's job, what would be in store for you for that? To be the chief. Might be a pay difference, not always. Some chiefs don't get paid for call and on time, overtime, so you may lose that. You may get a better schedule. Some places the chiefs are basically always on call. Sometimes they're not. You get an office. You get extra responsibility if you'd like that. You get to go to more meetings. I don't always find that the most pleasurable. And lastly, you get to do evaluations. Probably the most unpleasant part of a job if you're not well prepared for them. How many people here get yearly evaluations? So a little less than half. Okay. So performance and quality improvement, if you decide you want to get involved with that. What can you get involved with? There's hospital requirements, such as if you do the STS database, or even in our state, New York State, there are the cardiac surgery database that we get involved with. Many involved with the database for cardiac surgery? So, about half. So some of the skills that are needed. Data collection skills, computer skills, and even statistical knowledge, depending on how far you get involved with. What are some of the benefits? Actually, some of the benefits are you get to become a resource for the surgeons, possibly maybe go to more meetings, present, make your job more interesting. This is the STS database site. Even if you're not a member, you can actually find some interesting information off that. This is our New York State database. Typically, it's 3 years behind. It just came out recently, and they show surgeon results as well as hospital results on cabbage valve, and other type surgeries. Interesting to see. I believe we have, it's 40 hospitals in New York State that are reviewed. It's where it started in New York State. Actually, the local newspaper sued the state for this information to be published back in, I believe, 1990. And then it's flourished from there in many other states. Benefits to it, it actually got rid of some of the poorer quality surgeons, and many have indicated that it's actually improved outcome results. Professional organizations, what can you do? Many state and local level perfusion societies, now that licensure is more important. AMSECT, you can run for positions on AMSECT and the willingness to serve, board of directors, zone directors, or even committees. I know many people are involved with that. The Academy, you can be involved with that, or even the American Board of Cardiovascular Perfusion. Is showing the states that are licensed. We are currently in the process, not quite there yet. Run into several obstacles in New York State. First year was Governor Spitzer, kind of sent the legislators in a flurry, and then last year the legislators all walked out with Governor Patterson. So, and this is our bill that's presently in the New York State Assembly. So licensure, you get involved with AMSEC through there, state society involvement. Biggest problem is getting perfusionists interested. Biggest thing the legislators like to see are handwritten notes, and we see difficulty in getting that accomplished. Get to learn the political process. It's very interesting. Research. I've always been involved in research. It's been very rewarding in my career. Clinical research in your own department, it doesn't need to get published. It could just be quality improvement information, short of requiring IRB approval. You can write papers either from what you develop in your department or even review type papers that could be presented at meetings. It helps improve the departmental presence within your hospital. You can even get involved with the nurses on different studies within maybe your cardiac surgery area. But it does require some extra unpaid work, and you need to be willing to put that time in. And again, there are skills needed: writing, statistical, and database. I guess we're fortunate part of a university at Cornell where all these courses are available to us, so in research, writing, and actually statistical methods. LVAD, that's a new thing. It's kind of renewed our career. Getting involved with LVAD, we've never really worked with patients or awake patients. Now we insert the device and actually see them post-surgery, and it's quite a rewarding experience. You actually work with awake patients and their families. It's multidisciplinary on the rounds, but it does require some long hours. Joint Commission, if your program decides to get Joint Commission accreditation, that's another thing you can become involved with, and you probably would be if you're going for that. And you learn writing PPR writings for the Joint Commission. It's interesting. And here's some of the requirements they have. You can find it on the Joint Commission site. It's no longer JACO. It's called the Joint Commission. Here's a device. ELSO is another organization to get involved with. We see that's more visual now, visible. And we even had that here at our meeting. The Journal Club. I've recently got involved with the Journal Club with the nurses. We pick different topics. Currently, most of them are involved with customer service. Helps you develop presentation skills, performance improvement, customer service, and you get free lunch. This is one of the books by Quint Studer I would advise reading. What Mr. Studer, he was actually a special education teacher who got into hospital administration. And what he did was he talks about the uncommon sense. It's just the common sense things we could be doing that we don't. And what he talks about is building a culture around service and how, what is the reality versus perception. We'll discuss that a little more. In Disney, Fred Lee was an administrator who actually went to work for Disney after he retired and looked at that, and he was surprised by the satisfaction scores. Disney basically only takes people who are very satisfied, and they're in the 80% very satisfied category, where most hospitals would probably only fit in about maybe 50 or 60% of our patients are very satisfied. And what he does is he talks about perceptions versus reality, that it's what patients perceive is more important. You no longer can just say, well, we're the best university hospital and they'll come to us just for that. It's how we talk to them when they're in there. Courtesy is probably more important than efficiency. It's not how fast we move them through the hospital, it's how we treat them. And his goal is creating patient loyalty, because that's the only type of patient who actually come back. Satisfied patients typically don't come back. The loyal patient will. Talks about intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation. And here is what's interesting: habit versus imagination. Habit is something we ultimately do automatically versus a lower level of compliance. We only do it because it's part of our policies and procedures. Steve Covey is another book would be recommended, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And when he talks about the 3 stages of development, until you can develop the interdependence. He says in college we're dependent upon the professors and learning. It's not until we actually get out and use that education where we become independent. Then lastly, the highest role, or the leadership role, is when you can get other people together to perform what needs to be done. And that's the highest thing we need to do. So teams on steroids. One of the things we developed the standards of behavior. We had our code of conduct with the hospital, and basically what it was, you almost had to kill somebody to be reprimanded or disciplined. So we've actually put together standards of behavior. And many of the items in there are those annoying things that people within the group do that we state Should not be done. So it sets the baseline of expectations for the group, and then we actually sign it. Everybody signs it and agrees to it. Secondly, we look at recognition. There are different rewards, patient rewards. As perfusionists, typically patients don't know anything about us. So we've set up, it's a reward system where anybody can recommend somebody, and it's a short note that's put in a box, and these are read out. Typically, it's not compensated. There's no cash involved, but we also call them the compliment boxes. Periodic evaluations are very important because people need to know where they stand. It's stressful. We do a mid-year review, then we do self-evaluations. What we've moved to now, people do self-evaluations on themselves, and we're looking at moving it to where they'll also do 3 other members of the team. We have 15 people, so they will also review 3 other people as well. Does a couple things. People know that some of the other people are going to be reviewing them. They probably will work along with them a little better because there is some result to that. And it also lets people know how they're doing according to their peers, and versus just, if I'm the chief, just how I think they're doing, because they may act a little differently to me than their coworkers. And lastly, you should ask your boss, what am I doing well? Not just how am I doing, because they can just say, you're doing fine. But ask them what I'm doing well. So it's a little more of open-ended. So dreams motivate. If you ever heard the Martin Luther King speech, he didn't say, I have a plan. He said, I have a dream speech. What you need to do is find out, what do people dream of in your department? And we've done other exercises of, what do you dream of? What type of department do you dream of working in? And these are some of the responses that we've seen in that, where they all feel like friends, we find meaning in our work, and we try to create the best possible experience for our patients. So if you wanted to actually take this home with you, you can practice these statements. I want a manager, employee, or coworker who, and let them finish that statement. Managers can find some very revealing things about themselves in there. And secondly, I like to work when there is more of and less of. We've done that, and it's been very helpful. And the standards. Create standards in your department where there's one best way. A lot of the problems I've seen amongst the staff, well, they all do things a little differently. They may go on with a lower ACT level, and then the surgeon the next day, you go on bypass, and you say, the ACT is only 400. He says, well, yesterday it was fine, why not today? But have those standards, and you got to follow them up. Follow through with those standards. Create that one best way. Getting a life, having a family focus. Very important. Exercise. I heard Matt was just telling me he got a P90X. Unfortunately, he hasn't started using it yet. But exercise, very important. Improve your diet. I don't know if you're familiar with Dr. Oz. He's from our system at New York Presbyterian. Very big on that. Developing customer service skills. As a perfusionist, you don't even have to do any of that. But we've found it's quite rewarding to actually go to the patient when they come in the room, before they come in. Introduce yourself. It creates a little bond, and I think you think about that patient a little differently when you're actually operating on them. You can think of them as your favorite aunt or uncle or something like that. Financial planning. As we saw, perfusionists make a significant amount of money. See what you're doing with that. Invest it. Take advantage of the 403 plans or whatever you have at your hospital. Vacation planning as well. And getting a hobby. Here's one, a little sign we had in there. Notice this department requires no physical fitness program. Everyone gets enough exercise jumping to conclusions, flying off the handle, running down the boss, knifing friends in the back, and dodging responsibility. That's something you shouldn't see, but. So practice gratitude. This was an exercise I've seen recently at a nursing meeting. And what it was, the speaker took a flower and with all the petals on the flower. And that's supposed to be your life. And what we do is think of your patient as that flower. And as that patient gets old, most of the patients we work with could be older or have other issues going on. And each pedal is something bad that happened in that person's life. As we age, we get more pains. You can't walk where you were. You can't exercise. Some pedals fall out from there. You lose some loved ones. Some more come out of there. They go deaf or blind. They can't listen to music, things like that. More come out of that. And after you're done, you're left with just basically a stalk, something that's not as pretty. And you think of this, and this is how our patients are when we get them, and it makes you understand where they're coming from. It might even work with the people you work with. So you get to know them a little better, understand where they're coming from, and you will know the buttons that get them to act the way they do, in the way that you don't want. And I think that's a good exercise to do. And that concludes my talk. Thank you. Any questions? Thanks. Oh, remember to fill out the surveys.